Thank you very much, beloved extended family. I want to start the proceedings that is customary at our university by professing and pronouncing one of the many versions of the Hotep Dinasut. So if you would stand for a moment, please, so that we can open the proceedings. Hotep Dinasut, Usir Impu, Disanu, Burkaru, Katau, Kahunkatu, Kakao, Kaapadu, Kaseshu, Makunkitu, Kaket Nabet Nafr Wabet, Maat Unk Najurin, in Ka and Aku and Makiyu. And everyone say, Ma'akeru. Ma'akeru. It means true of voice. In our vernacular, I ain't jiving. Thank you. Not from Mars. Supreme thanks and praises to the one most high, omniscient creator, the source of all sources, in existence and non-existence. Unrelenting love and thanks to my immediate family who share this incarnational cycle with me, my father and mother, may they rest in peace and power. My children, Shamika, Amen-Ra, and Kai Tehran, and their beautiful mothers, Charlene and Gail, and to my grandchildren, Sahai and Issa. I wish to express in words my special love, light, and transcendent bliss to my present wife, Queen Empress and soulmate, Dr. Nalani Sotretira, for joining me at this stage of my personal journey, for having enriched my life with her living presence and unconditional support of me and my work. And I would like to give thanks and praises to all of you who came, and to give a special recognition and honor for a wonderful presentation to Queen Afua. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to try to do our best to stay within context. I know that I have given you the name of a specific lecture that I wish to do, but during the time that I was preparing it, and it's all prepared, that particular name, something else came up, something very drastic. So I'm going to shift and do something that is a follow-up to a previous lecture that I did back in Baltimore. Beloved brothers and sisters, we should all know by now that we are all unwilling participants in a war being prosecuted for the domination, subjugation, and parasitic possession of human biospiritual energies, as well as planetary resources. Our thought patterns are not only being monitored, but synthetically modified and manipulated within algorithmically constructed neurological energy patterns that were specifically designed to induce the collective intelligence index of our autochthonous peoples to spiral downward into progressively lower frequency bands of consciousness. Biodisruptive frequency technologies have been set up globally to distort and disrupt humanity's higher access to cosmic self-awareness. The first stages of the strategy to undermine and possess the human mind and soul has been to separate us from the empathic frequencies of nature, to estrange us from the psychosymmetric algorithms of life, and communicate us or discommunicate us through our higher instincts, which then give birth to natural thinking, symmetric reasoning, and natural behavior. All this they have accomplished through tactical implantation of synthetic memes. That's a word that has just been introduced into the social lexicon, the meme. Well, they have accomplished this through the tactical implementation and implantation of synthetic memes, using the algorithmically constructed news broadcasts of multimedia to coordinate and control the behavioral reflexes of the masses. In essence, weaving a pathological perceptual construct of algorithmically coordinated paradigms of self-regulating mind control. With diabolical efficiency, they have disrupted and co-opted the flow of organic continuity. Think about that. There is no natural synchronicity anymore. Everything you think is happening moment by moment has been artificially structured, and you are following an artificial pattern of behavior that you are synchronized with. All active and passive tactics and technologies used to colonize, systemize, and adversely utilize our thoughts, our dreams, our visions and intentions represent aggressive efforts to scientifically preempt or methodically attenuate those higher cerebral frequencies associated with human spirituality, human evolutionary thinking, the psychogenetic transcendence, and by immersing us, the collective mind and the collective cognition of the masses, into an ocean of algorithmically structured synthetic schematics of reality. Today, I wish to explore with you one of these patterns, an algorithmically coordinated pattern of political deception that, when finally discovered, may have devastating consequences for peoples of African descent here in America. A program algorithm uploaded into the Psychosocial Index of America back in 2008. Now, lights, please. Okay. Technical difficulties. And here we go. First things first, to protect my, which really doesn't mean anything, as you know, to protect my intellectual capital, I will read into the records. This private lecture seminar entitled Decrypting the Asymmetric Algorithms of Psychopolitical Warfare, the spook who got in, or including all words, intellectual concepts, context, and precepts in both audio and visual forms, are limited to the sole use of Dr. Phil Valentine and host representatives of King Simon Productions and the intended recipient participants of this lecture seminar dated 16 June 2013 AD, and contains privileged, proprietary, and confidential information that is not for sale, display, or representation except by the first two parties aforementioned. Any and all political, private, or public entities, federal, state, or local corporate governments, municipalities, international organizations, corporations, agents, investigators, informants, or bystanders, et al., and or third parties working in collusion with above agencies to collect information by monitoring this presentation. And or any other means of electronic spying and collecting content without our exclusive permission are barred from any and all unauthorized review, use, disclosure, or distribution. All images utilized in this presentation are displayed in accordance with Title 17 U.S. Code, Chapter 1, Subsection 107, notwithstanding the provisions set forth in Title 17 U.S. Code, Subsection 106 and 106A. With explicit reservation of all my rights, without prejudice and without recourse to me, Dr. Philip Valentine and the University of Commission Sciences, any omission does not constitute a waiver of any and or all intellectual property rights or reserved rights. Notice to principal is notice to agent. Notice to agent.
Notice to principal.
Thank you. Now, I wish to dedicate this particular lecture to a good brother who has just suffered a massive stroke. One of my colleagues, beloved brother, Bobby Hemmett. Let's all show him some love. Our good brother, we're sending good energies to him. His love offering, his love gift, his love, I forgot what it's called, was up to $26,000. Now you need to give yourselves a hand for that. moving right along, I have changed the context of this particular lecture purposely. And you all have been requesting that I do the black news for a long time. And I have now. Everybody said, when are you going to do the black news? Well, I thought I have been. All the crap that we've been going through and everything that I've been showing you up on the screen, that is the black news. But I said, well, let me specifically put that down. Well, the black news is going to be one where we are going to investigate what it is that I had put out as a conjecture a while back. So, we're going to get into the energy itself. The first thing we're going to overstand and understand is the art of war. Now, in the art of war, anybody heard the art of war? Sisters and brothers, we are familiar with the art of war. Well, that is exactly what's being conducted upon us. And we do not take this book very seriously. So I'm going to show you how they manipulated this book and manipulated the rest of America and the world and did what they did to change the paradigm and change it in such a way as to endanger each and every one of us on this planet. It's already started. Sun Tzu has said, in the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. Hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. And y'all ain't put up a fight in, oh. You see where I'm going? Oh, it's going to get better. The skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. All warfare is based on deception. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. In battle, there are not more than two methods of attack, the direct and the indirect. The difficulty of tactical maneuvering consists in turning the devious into the direct. Attack where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. If he is in superior strength, evade him. If temperamental, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. Just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called heaven-born captain. If you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. If you know your enemy and you know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. Well, I figured that I would do that. Remember this particular title that was being broadcast for the last month and a half or two? This was the original title of this lecture. Decrypting the Asymmetric Algorithms of Psychospiritual Warfare, Part 1, the electromagnetic induction of synthetic consciousness algorithms for the purpose of manipulating intent. There go our titles again. Now watch. This goes viral. Somebody pimps it. Somebody takes it and puts it and goes, they're going to change it. They're going to say, mind control. And then somebody going to come and say, you did a thing on mind control about warfare. I never did that. The reason why I do these is because these titles give you a synopsis of the entire lecture so that you can understand and understand what it is that you are going to be getting into. But with that, I found that as a result I had to change it. I had to create something very quickly because of the times, calling it decrypting the asymmetric algorithms of psychopolitical warfare. Because I already did the psycho-spiritual thing, it would be a redundancy, wouldn't it? But let me show you what has been going on underneath the layer of BS that we've been getting. You will see. Now, the subtitle of this was one of my favorite titles, The Spook Who Got In the Door. Y'all know where I'm going, right? Oh, it's going to be deep. Y'all going to be mad at me, some of y'all, especially the nationalists. Y'all going to hate me, but that's all right. I've been doing it for the last, 30 years? And everybody been mad at me before. Now everybody's saying, you know what? Brother Valentine said this. I can't remember when, but. Good. So now we know what we're talking about. So let's start at fundamental levels. The word asymmetric, what does it mean? The absence of harmony, proportion, balance, and patterned self-similarity. All of this will mean more as we go along. Let's talk about what an algorithm is. And this is something that the Moors and a lot of our brothers and sisters who are following the Moorish paradigm should also know, especially when they're teaching our children mathematics. The word algorithm actually descends from a word, and you will get to see what this word is about as we move forward. Although there are no formal definitions for that word, an informal definition would be a set of rules that precisely defines a sequence of operations, an effective method expressed as a finite list of well-defined instructions for calculating a function. Now, the people who are playing with the paradigm of our control have already structured an algorithmic pattern of control for the last 70 years. That's how far into the future that they work their magic on us. You are 70 years behind their plans. Don't even think that you feel like you're going to, and this is the problem we have. We are reactors. We don't act, we react. And that's how they keep us back on our feet. But you see, one of the best reactors in the business was Muhammad Ali. And until we learn to float like a butterfly, because that's all we've been doing is floating, we ain't learned to sting yet. We've just been backpedaling and defending, because we haven't really understood the game and the rules of the game and the algorithmic patterns upon which they have set and structured their control mechanism. The concept of algorithm is also used to define the notion of decidability. In other words, I'm going to decide what I want you to do. And by instituting a program algorithmically, I know every move you're going to make before you make it. Because I'm instigating and I am precipitating and I am supplying the stimulus for you to do exactly what that pattern has been structured to do. Central for explaining how formal systems, i.e. governments, come into being, starting with a small set of axioms and rules. In logic, the time that an algorithm requires to complete cannot be measured, since it is not normally apparent to our customary physical dimensions of perception. Therefore, they can set a paradigm of control on you, and because it is not physical that you could pattern your mind around it, what happens? You don't know that you are acting upon something that you think are your own thoughts. You think are your own behavioral reflexes. They don't belong to you that way. They're not yours. So what is an algorithm? Well, algorithm is a transliteration taken from the name Abu Abdallah Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, a master mathematician, astronomer, and geographer who served during the Abbasid Moorish Empire. He was a scholar in the House of Wisdom, or Bayat al-Hikmah, in Baghdad, which was a library, a translation institute, research center considered back then to be a major intellectual hub during the golden age of Islam. The word al-Khwarizmi, transliterated al-Gorithmi or al-Gwarizin, pronounced in the classical Arabic as al-Gwarithmi, where the Latin transliteration of his name, algorithm, is derived, hence algorithm. Other words of the discipline of mathematics that reflect the importance of al-Khwarizmi's contributions to the word algebra. You did it all. Algebra, derived from al-jabar, one of the two operative techniques he used to solve what are known as quadratic equations. Let's start with one. Interesting how we have not been more vociferous about this thing here, about what happened. And remember, I told everyone that this would happen. Back in the day, I warned that they did not protect this brother. Let's go into what it is, and the reason why I'm doing all of this, you know that every time I do something, I do it because guess what? It's going to be something you can refer back to later on. Check? Check? Check. That's what I'm talking about, church. This was taken directly from Gay Edgar Hoover's counterintelligence program under the category of black nationalist hate groups. How can we hate? He's still in power. We really hated him. He wouldn't be. The purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of black nationalist hate-type organizations and groupings, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, and to counter their propensity for violence and civil disorder. The activities of all such groups of intelligence interest to the Bureau must be followed on a continuous basis, so we will be in a position to promptly take advantage of all opportunities for counterintelligence and inspire action in instances where circumstances warrant. Efforts of the various groups to consolidate their forces or to recruit new or youthful adherents must be frustrated. No opportunity should be missed to exploit through counterintelligence techniques the organizational and personal conflicts of the leaderships of the groups, and where possible, an effort should be made to capitalize upon existing conflicts between competing black nationalist organizations. When an opportunity is apparent to disrupt or neutralize black nationalists, hate-type organizations through the cooperation of established local news contacts, or through such contact with sources available to the seat of government in every instance, careful attention should be given to the proposal to ensure that the targeted group or individual is disrupted, ridiculed, or discredited through the publicity not merely publicized. You are also cautioned that the nature of this new endeavor should be that under no circumstances should the existence of the program be made known outside the Bureau, and appropriate within-office security should be afforded to sensitive operations and techniques considered under the program. What is all this saying? That COINTELPRO never left the scene. Watch. For maximum effectiveness of counterintelligence and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals must be set. 1, prevent the coalition of black militant nationalist groups. In unity, there is strength. Even the enemy knows. A truism that is no less valid for all its triteness. An effective coalition of black nationalist groups might be the first step towards a real Mau Mau in America, the beginning of a true black revolution. Prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah Muhammad is no less of a threat since of his age. King could be a very real contender for this position should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrine. Of nonviolence. And embrace nationalism, which he did at the end. Stokely Carmichael was the necessary charisma to be a real threat in this way as well. And lastly, prevent black militant nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to 3 separate segments of the community. The goal of discrediting black nationalists must be handled technically or tactically in 3 ways. You must discredit those groups and individuals too. First, the responsible Negro community. Second, they must be discredited to the white community, both the responsible community and to liberals who have vestiges of sympathy for the black nationalists simply because they are Negroes. Third, these groups must be discredited in the eyes of Negro radicals and the followers. That's where they start the dissent. That's where we start fighting one another, right? This last area requires entirely different tactics from the first 2. Publicity about violent tendencies and radical statements merely enhances black nationalists to the last group. It adds respectability in a different way. 5, a final goal should be to prevent the long-range growth of militant black organizations, especially among youth. Specific tactics to prevent these groups from converting young people must be developed. So young people are targeted. Primary targets of this counterintelligence program, and I can go through it: Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Revolutionary Action Movement, Nation of Islam. Okay? Now, here's where we need to get into a serious part of how they circumvent the movement forward and upward. My girl, bad girl. Yeah, that's all right. You can give it to her. Go ahead and give it up. Sister's been on the front lines. On the front lines of the madness. I'd like to read something that our young brother, Malcolm, said. There's a lot to say here, but here's what they do right before the assassination. I sincerely appreciate the care and concern of the people over my well-being after Press TV's report of the most recent events which have transpired regarding the FBI's harassment of me. Given the storm of lies and half-truths that come with being associated with being the descendant of El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, known as Minister Malcolm X, any and everything that I do, great and small, good or not so good, real or imagined, is subject to controversy. However, in this missive, this boy is seriously eloquent, like his father or grandfather. However, in this missive, I will take this opportunity to properly and fully disclose what transpired. In the beginning of 2012, I had been informed that I was under investigation by the FBI's Counterintelligence Task Force unit located in Goshen, New York. The agents of this division, and in collaboration with others, have visited several times, of which I was known to them to frequent. However, they would never come when they knew me to be exactly there. They would leave their cards with the residents asking them to tell me that you called, or have them call, tell the residents around them that the FBI said for him to call. And then would tell surrounding residents to observe the house and notify them when they did see me. These are the homes of longtime friends and very close supporters. Yet, when the federal agents begin knocking on someone's door on multiple occasions to snoop and ask questions, whether one is guilty of an offense or not, it's enough to coerce people into distancing themselves from you. This cheap tactic employed by the FBI is a means of agitation and harassment. They seek to neutralize my networking capabilities. They have visited locations in California, Chicago, Miami, and most aggressively in New York. People were advising me that if I had nothing to hide, then I should just contact them as requested and cooperate. Though I must say that in these kinds of matters, I am of a particular ethic. For one, I have been engaged in no criminal activity of their concern, and they could have located me anytime they chose. Secondly, I don't recognize the authority in them beckoning me. It wasn't even until my mother informed me that they had been contacting her that I truly became agitated. She advised me to see what they had to say, and so I obliged the next time they came around looking for me. My encounter was with 2 federal agents in Goshen, New York's Counterterrorism Task Force Foci Unit. The primary agent identified himself as Agent Tom Broziski. They expressed concerns over, as they put it, my international travels. I have lived and studied in Damascus, Syria for over a year. And now, Damascus, Syria for over a year. Keep that in mind. And now in the United States, is instigating conflict within the very region. I went on ex-Congresswoman, former presidential candidate Cynthia McKinney's delegation along with Dr. Randy Short to Libya and met with leader Muammar Gaddafi 1 week prior to NATO intervention, and I was most recently getting ready to travel to Tehran, Iran, to be a participant in the International Fajr Film Festival and to give a lecture addressing the issues of Hollywood and violence. I was picked up by authorities after I filed for a visa to Iran and 2 days prior to my departure. A detective squad from the city of Middletown Police Department surrounded me in the street after 2 blocks from where I was residing. They asked me my name. I gave it to them. I gave them an alias, but then they were already and all too aware of who I really was anyway. I didn't tell them my real name because I didn't know what was going on. When I was brought before the city judge or the judge of Middletown court, I was surprised to be informed that I was being charged with grand larceny and false imprisonment or false impersonation. Then I was sent to jail and told to appear again in 7 days. Then following the court date, the bogus charge of grand larceny, which is only put to justify stopping me in the first place, was then dropped. And they left me to face the false impersonation. I was offered 90 days for the offense of giving the authorities the wrong name, which I declined after bailing out after 2 weeks. When I was being held within the belly of the beast on trumped-up charges, to my rescue came the journalist at Press TV based in Iran. My relationship with this progressive news outfit began in April of 2012, and prior to that, I had discussions with my journalists regarding current events internationally. I developed a positive rapport with some of them, and as a result, was invited to travel to Iran to discuss the impact of Hollywood on stereotyping Muslims, Iranians, and African people. Now, I said that, and I put that into the record because what we were watching is a pattern of harassment that essentially is given or is imploded or imposed upon people who they want to destroy. Now, if this has supposedly gone viral and we knew about this and they knew about it, why is it that this young brother was not protected? Now, here's the question that I have when the time came. As is to his assassination, the most authoritative account so far comes from Miguel Suarez, who's been described as a person who organized Mexican workers in the United States and was expelled from the United States in April. Suarez reportedly told the Associated Press that he was with Malcolm Shabazz when he was killed. Now, according to international sources, Suarez is said to be the co-founder of an organization called RUMEC, which stands for Revolutionary United Mexicans in Combat. Suarez told the Associated Press that he and Malcolm Shabazz went to a bar at Plaza Garibaldi on Wednesday, where the attack occurred hours later. Malcolm died on Thursday. According to the Associated Press, although the Plaza Garibaldi, where the two went, is popular with tourists, quote, the pair were at a bar across the street from the plaza in an area of rough dive bars tourists are warned against going to. We were dancing with the girls and drinking in the bar. Listen to that, Suarez told AP, and added that the owner of the bar wanted them to pay a $1,200 bar tab for music, drinks, and the girls' companionship. Now, does that sound like your boy? No. Oh, boy? Not to me. Here's the part that doesn't fit. This is me talking. Brother Shabazz had just converted to Shia or Shiite Islam. And as a new convert, one would think that he would be very conscious of the rules of the new faith. One of the tenets of Islam being, in Quran 590, intoxicants or wine and spirit, and gambling are Satan's handiwork. Avoid them. So, there are Muslims who drink and smoke and everything, but this is a young brother who is trying to follow in one of the most pristine men after he cleaned himself up. Even Farrakhan said that he would not eat but one meal a day. He did his prayers, did his bath. You could not find him chewing gum. He couldn't do anything. And this boy was associating himself with his grandfather. Do you think he would be over there getting lap dances? No. Okay, just wanted to be clear. Suarez goes on to say, we pretty much got hassled. From this point, the story gets very fishy. Suarez told the Associated Press that a short dude came with a gun and took him into a separate room. He said he heard a violent commotion in the hall and escaped from the room. He escaped from the room and the bar altogether as he saw half-naked girls running away, picking up their skirts from the floor. Malcolm Shabazz was then taken to a hospital where he died hours later of blunt force injuries, according to Suarez's report to the AP. Minutes later, Suarez came back in a cab to look for Malcolm and found him on the ground outside the bar, severely injured. Quote, he was in shock. His face was messed up. Suarez is quoted saying to the AP, he's alive. He's also quoted as saying, I grabbed him and I called the cops. Malcolm Shabazz was then taken to the hospital, and of course I'm redundant, according to the Associated Press. Now, from the Reuters we read, this is from Reuters now, that was Associated Press, here's Reuters. 2 doors down from the public or the Palace Bar, just past gay nightclub Diversity. Now, check where they put this boy. Because all the surrounding areas where he was found was to reinforce why it could have happened and how he could have been assassinated. And it could have been like somebody jumped him or he just got into a bar fight. A garage attendant named Mario Zombansi recalled how he had turned in for the night, bedded down in a tiny cubby hole where he guards patrons' keys. I woke up because there was a commotion. I could see him lying on the floor. There were lots of people crowded around him, he said. He was lying right there, he said, pointing to the curb leading to the garage. A pool of greenish-yellow car radiator fluid now marks the spot. I couldn't tell if he had been beaten up or run over by a car. He's dead, he added, clearly shot, but he was alive. There on the ground when the ambulance took him away. He was alive. Staff at the Diversity Club said the spot was closed in the early hours of Thursday when Shabazz was dumped on the sidewalk. Several people Reuters spoke to in the area said they heard a man had died after jumping out of a window when drunk. That's the story I heard, that he was so drunk that he opened the window and jumped out, said a 31-year-old Javier Angeles, who stood on the far side of the main road from the palace, waving down taxis for customers leaving the square. He described the place as a place for adults, not a family place. But there are no windows above the area where Shabazz was laying. And others had a doubt he was murdered. Had no doubt he was murdered. Here they kill you and nobody even realizes, said 48-year-old local Antonio Moncada. as he stood outside the palace bar on a Sunday, a Tuesday, any time of the day. So, let's ask these questions. This is the bar where he supposedly jumped out the second floor window when he was drunk. How could you die from that particular height? Let's ask these questions, because these are the questions asked by the people who are actually doing this program. How did Suarez himself survive the gunman, whom he says took him to another room? Why was he taken to another room, and what happened while he was there? How long was Suarez in the other room with the gunman, and how did he escape? How long was Suarez away before he returned for Malcolm Shabazz in a damn cab? And how far did he go away to have to need a cab? Who else witnessed the beating of Malcolm Shabazz, since presumably there were other patrons inside the bar and there were also people outside the bar? Asking this question, it's from this particular story window. This is another vintage. Was this a bar that Suarez had frequented in the past? And did he know the people who owned or operated the bar? Perhaps the most important question, Suarez says he was taken away by a gunman, and while he was in another room, he heard a commotion. Presumably, this was Malcolm Shabazz being beaten. Yet, even after he had been held at gunpoint and somehow managed to escape, instead of calling the police immediately, Suarez left and then came back in the cab to look for Malcolm. Other abnormality raised by researcher Gregory Kane. Suarez knew or should have known all dangerous spots in Mexico that tourists should avoid at all costs. Why would he take Malcolm Shabazz to a notorious hoochie bar? This guy that appeared with the gun to take Suarez to a separate room, leaving Malcolm Shabazz to the not very tender mercies of the men that would beat him to death, seems rather convenient, doesn't it? Suarez escaping also seems rather convenient, doesn't it? After his escape from a guy who pulled a gun on him, and after hearing a violent commotion in the hall, Suarez returns in a cab. Why didn't Suarez return with cops rather than a cab? Yeah. And lastly, how exactly was Malcolm Shabazz to help Suarez? How did Malcolm Shabazz know Suarez, and for how long? Who organized the trip? What was Suarez's mother said? What does she say so far? Now, this report was by African Globe. So you can look up that word, it's a internet blogging, and I think it's a very good internet blogging, do very good investigative reporting. African Globe. So now, this is all pre-living. I haven't even got to meet it yet. This is hors d'oeuvres. Leading you to some hopefully interesting things for you to do when you get home. Do more investigation. Infiltration. We remember this man. This man said, "We are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations." Keep that in mind. Let's go to the Protocols of Zion and read what they have to say about infiltration. Every state, if every state has two foes, and if in regard to the external foe, now you know they have a really serious logic in this. Y'all gotta listen to the Protocols of Zion, because it's beginning to become a hell of a lot more reasonable. Whoever put this out, you could see the sick and diabolical mind, and everything is in sync with these protocols. Watch. There are two foes, has two foes if in regard to the external foe, It is allowed and not considered immoral to use every manner and art of conflict, as for example, to keep the enemy in ignorance of plans of attack and defense, to attack him by night or in superior numbers. Then, in what way can be the same means in regards to a worse foe, the destroyer of a structure of society and the commonwealth, be called immoral and not permissible? Is it impossible for any sound logical mind to hope with any success to guide crowds to the aid of reasonable counsels and arguments when any objection or contradiction, senseless though it may be, can be made, and when such objection may find more favor with the people whose powers of reasoning are superficial? Men in masses and the men of the masses, being guided solely by petty passions, paltry beliefs, traditions, and sentimental theorems, fall prey to party dissensions, which hinders any kind of agreement even on the basis of a perfectly reasonable argument. I concur. Every resolution of a crowd depends upon a chance or packed majority, which, in its ignorance of political secrets, puts forth some ridiculous resolution that lays in the administration a seed of anarchy. Is that the Moors of today? We are so damn scattered. Everybody's bickering because they think they have the #1 Moorish paradigm. Everybody has a church of this, and I'm this, I have the legitimate this. And they told you that it's in power, is in unity. And we try to get the heads of these different Moorish organizations together. Yeah, you can come at me and get big pissed off with me because I have listened to each and every one of your organizations. And I am putting it out here today that you all are weaker with the very knowledge that you are supposed to have gained strength by. Because you have not yet knitted it together and put aside your petty egotistical grievances about who should lead what. It's nonsense. You want a Moorish empire to rise again? Then get your shit together. Now listen to this, what they said in the protocols. The political has nothing in common with the moral. Listen carefully. The political has nothing in common with the moral. The ruler who is governed by the moral is not a skilled politician and is therefore unstable on his throne. He who wishes to rule must have recourse both to cunning and to make believe. We have been living in make believe, children. Lollipop dreams and great national qualities like frankness and honesty are vices in politics. For they bring down rulers from their thrones more effectively and more certainly than the most powerful enemy. Such qualities must be the attributes of the kingdoms of the Goyim, but we must in no way wise be guided by them. Our right lies in force. The word right is an abstract thought and proved by nothing. The word means no more than give me what I want in order that thereby I may have proof that I am stronger than you. This is their mentality, family. Where does right begin? Where does it end? Well, you know what? We do know that. Moral, ethical people who understand and have empathetic energies, who want to teach their children from small to put aside certain types of energies that will destroy the collective. Not no communistic nonsense, I'm not talking about that, but raising in moral, ethical values. Now, here's where it gets good. Out of the temporary evil we are now compelled to commit will emerge the good of an unshakable rule, which will restore the regular course of the machinery of the national life, brought to naught by liberalism. The result justifies the means. Let us, however, in our plans, direct our attention not so much to what is good and moral as to what is necessary and useful. In order to elaborate satisfactory forms of actions it is necessary to have regard to the rascality, the slackness, the instability of the mob, its lack of capacity to understand and respect the conditions of its own life or its own welfare. It must be understood that the might of the mob is blind, senseless, and unreasoning force, ever at the mercy of a suggestion from any side. The blind cannot lead the blind without bringing them into the abyss. Consequently, members of the mob, upstarts from the people, even though they should be as a genius for wisdom, yet having no understanding of the political, cannot come forward as leaders of the mob without bringing the whole nation to ruin. Only one trained from childhood for independent rule can have understanding of the words that can be made up of the political alphabet. Listen carefully. Only one trained from childhood for independent rule can have understanding of the words that can be made up of the political alphabet. Only one, trained from childhood for independent rule can have understanding of the words that can be made up of the political alphabet. Only one trained from childhood, listen carefully, only one trained from childhood for independent rule can have understanding of the words that can be made up of the political alphabet. Only one trained from childhood for independent rule can have understanding of the words only one trained we're not going there, sister, because this is nothing like that. Barry minus Barry, plus or minus Barry minus Barry, divided by Fn, you will find out what that equation means later on, equals Barak. Why am I doing this? Well, it'll come out. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to find out a little more about what's going on in your country underneath the surface. But I thought this particular saying would make a lot more sense because it means a lot, having been said by someone who existed back in 63, 64? Sneer not at the nigger, for today it is in him we must find our Lord, and in serving him we serve the Church of God. This was Orestes Brownson. Statement made after the New York draft riots in 1863. Sneer not at the nigger. Sneer not at the nigger. Ladies and gentlemen, who is Barack Hussein Obama? Really? Okay. In the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take a country or enemy's country whole and intact. All warfare is based on deception. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. In battle, there are not more than two methods of attack, the direct and the indirect. The difficulty of tactical maneuvering consists in turning the devious into the direct. Attack where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven-born captain or president. If you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. Barack Hussein Obama and all places, personalities, and circumstances associated with this name is an algorithm of infiltration. Constructed some 50 years ago, then implemented with tactical precision in 2005. However, schematic anomalies and sequential inconsistencies in the algorithm have exposed serious flaws in its inherent design. When you look into that name, there are no actual birth records, no actual marriage document for the parents of a Barack Obama the second. No actual divorce decree for the parents, no actual school records, no actual family photos, no legitimate selective service application, no actual passports. This entity, Barack Hussein Obama, and all entities who surround him to protect whatever that algorithm is, hired high-priced lawyers to build legal walls around records or simply make them disappear. Has spent an estimated $1.4 million blocking access to documents related to his past life. Harvard education paid for by Khalid al-Mansour, financial advisor to Prince, Saudi Prince al-Walid bin Talal. Mansour told Manhattan Borough President Percy Sutton that he was raising money for Obama's Harvard education or tuition. Selective service registration form not submitted when young as required, but rather in 2008, then altered to look older. The forgers forgot to alter the document location number, which shows that it was clearly a 2008 form. The first inauguration of Barack Obama as the 44th President of the United States took place on Tuesday, January the 20th, 2009. Just 6 days later, he wrote his first executive order. 6 days? And you're writing an executive order. Presidential Documents 4669, Federal Registry, Volume 4774, Number 15, January 2009, Title 3, the President Executive Order 13489 of January 21, 2009, President Records, by the authority vested in me as President, by the Constitution and the laws of the President of the United States of America, and in order to establish policies and procedures governing the assertion of executive privilege by incumbent and former presidents in connection with the release of presidential records. He put this in. No others, but he did. Okay. Some of what it says is, G, and I went down the list when I found it, G, a substantial question of executive privilege exists if NARA's disclosure of presidential records might impair national security, including the conduct of foreign relations, law enforcement, or the debilitative process of the executive branch. Notice of intent to disclose presidential records in Section 2, when the archivist provides notice to an incumbent and the former presidents of his intent to disclose presidential records pursuant to Section 1270.46 of the NARA regulations, the archivist, using any guidelines provided by the incumbent. In other words, you do what I say, not the law. This is the presidential override. Okay, where he now invokes executive privilege. If the president decides to invoke executive privilege, the council of the president shall notify the former president, the archivist, and the attorney general in writing of the claim of privilege and the special presidential records to which it relates. So, I put that up there so that you could read it, see it, and see that he placed there a kind of chess move to check anything that you may want to do to find out who he is. And guess what? These white folks want to know just who the hell he is. And that's going to have some serious repercussions on us later on. And that's why I'm leading up to this. So you can know why, if you start getting shot at by somebody with Confederate flags. So as a result, you begin to wonder why it is over 150,000 of our people have disappeared, young kids. We don't get that in the news. Only when Becky disappears do we hear about it for yet 3 or 4 months. So, as a result of this presidential order, Occidental College records sealed, Columbia records sealed, Columbia thesis paper sealed, Harvard College records sealed, selective service sealed, medical records sealed, Illinois State Senate schedule sealed, Illinois State Senate record sealed, law practice client list sealed, certified copy of original birth certificate sealed, signed embossed certification of live birth sealed. Barack Hussein Obama has multiple identities possessing numerous social security numbers. Orly Tates, an attorney who has filed numerous suits against Obama on his eligibility, was the first to discover this, representing a number of military officers who refused to serve under an ineligible commander-in-chief. She hired private investigator Neil Sankey to conduct research